I set 2 glasses of whiskey on my dining table, one for my wife and one for the man who would help her kill me, my brother. Outside, the storm chewed at the windows. Inside, we played a game, truth or dare. I asked Lauren if she ever regretted marrying me. She looked at Tyler before she answered. That was the crack in the foundation, the first sign that by Monday I'd be worth more dead than alive. I'm an architect. I build things that last, so I notice when something's off. The late-night calls, the business trips, the way my house stopped feeling like mine. If you think this is jealousy, wait. A forged signature, a burner phone, a storage unit on the edge of town with plans of my home and a route to make my death look tidy. I didn't pour that whiskey to toast the night. I poured it to mark the moment I decided to fight back. I'm Jack Miller, an architect in Dallas, the kind of man who keeps extra screws in a coffee can and receipts in labeled folders. I build strip malls that survive hail and homes that don't creak in August heat. My dad taught me to level a beam by feel, then to level my temper by counting to 10. It worked for 30 years, marriage, mortgage, payroll, church potlucks, tailgates, until the night the rain came sideways and the rules bent with it. People my age call it middle life. I call it maintenance. Fix the hinge, fix the schedule, fix the mess you made yesterday. I thought my house was tight, my marriage solid, my boundaries clear. Then Tyler moved into the guest room, and Lauren set 2 coffee mugs in the dishwasher facing opposite directions, like strangers sharing a sink. It's a small thing. Builders notice small things. Sometimes the smallest misalignment is the crack that brings down walls. For good. Lauren Bennett, my wife, speaks HR the way a surgeon speaks anatomy. Calm, precise, decisive. She can end a feud between sales and ops with 3 questions and a follow-up email. At home, she used to hum Motown while folding towels, double knot her running shoes, laugh louder than the blender. Lately, she measured her smiles like they were billable hours. She brought home new phrases, boundaries, alignment, strategic pause, and used them like furniture pads between us. Men my age know the quiet I'm describing. It isn't anger, it's absence, like a room after you move the piano out. She still reached for my hand at church but let go before the second hymn. She asked about my projects but didn't wait for the answer. The night of the storm, she set out the whiskey I liked, then asked for a game we hadn't played since college, truth or dare. Her eyes were kind. Her mouth was honest. Her message wasn't. Tyler is my younger brother by 8 years and 1,000 bad decisions. Handsome, strong, always between opportunities. He arrived with 2 suitcases and a smile that used to get him out of speeding tickets. 3 months later, the suitcases were in the attic and the smile was on my grocery bill. Older men know this dance. You bail family out because someone bailed you. He washed the truck, fixed a gutter, promised interviews. Then he discovered my whiskey and couch. Tyler can charm a waitress, a landlord, a parole officer, a snake if you gave him 5 minutes. What he couldn't charm was a balance sheet. Banks had stopped answering. The people he owed hadn't. He started taking calls on the porch, low voice, short words, like a man trying not to spill oil on a shirt. I told myself he needed time. Then I noticed he knew our alarm code better than I did, better than me, even. Brooke Carter isn't family, which is why her eyes mattered. She's Lauren's best friend from a leadership program, the type who brings a casserole when your dad has surgery and a bottle when your kid leaves for college. Brooke sees things other people gloss over. She saw me measuring my words. She saw Lauren measuring her distance. At dinner, she joked about fantasy football and HOA letters, and then her smile slipped when Tyler refilled Lauren's glass without asking. Older viewers will know the look, the quick glance between women that says, "Careful, line crossed." Brooke helped clean up after our party, stacking plates, wiping rings from the table. She pressed my palm with a folded napkin. Inside, her phone number underlined twice. "Call if you need a neutral set of eyes," she whispered. It felt like a neighbor leaving a porch light on. I didn't call. Men like me wait. That night, Brooke waited, watching the storm through her windshield. We were 4 adults pretending to be 20, because that's what people do when they want the truth without owning the question. Lauren lit candles that smelled like orange peel and cedar. Tyler put on a playlist called Old School that skipped every song older than 5 years. Brooke rolled her eyes and poured sparkling water over ice, like a designated driver for feelings. We shuffled truth or dare cards nobody needed. The rules were simple: speak, drink, or fold. Older folks know another rule that went unspoken. Whatever is said at the table lives in the marriage tomorrow. My turn came fast. Lauren leaned her elbows on the mahogany and smiled like a counselor about to rephrase my sentence back to me. "Truth or dare, Jack?" she asked. I chose truth because builders bet on solid ground. Tyler laughed. Somewhere in the house, the HVAC kicked on. Candles flickered. The storm drummed harder, like a warning we didn't take. I looked Lauren in the eye and asked the question men keep behind their ribs. "Do you ever regret marrying me? Not the house, not the dog, not the tax bracket. Me." The room didn't breathe for a beat. Tyler's grin stayed, but it loosened at the edges. Brooke studied the candle flame like it might offer counsel. Lauren rubbed the rim of her glass with her thumb, a habit from meetings. "Regret is a big word," she said, voice soft enough to pass for kindness. "I wonder sometimes about paths, about risk." I nodded like a man reading a blueprint he didn't draw. Older couples know this dance too. You ask for a crack and you get a philosophy lecture. I wanted a yes or no. She gave me maybes dressed in perfume. "Do you regret me?" I asked again. Lauren's eyes slid to Tyler for less than a second. Sometimes a glance is an answer. Sometimes it's a fuse. Lauren didn't say yes, but she didn't need to. "I think about momentum," she said, "about what happens when people stop taking chances." She was looking at me but speaking to the space between us. Then she did the smallest, loudest thing. She glanced at Tyler and smiled like a coin flipping. Older men talk about the day the laughter changed. You can feel it in your chest before your head agrees. "Sometimes I wonder what choosing differently would feel like," she added. Tyler lifted his glass and didn't drink. Brooke's chair made a sound against the floor, the kind of sound that tells you someone's ready to leave. I stared at the water track crawling down the window and thought about foundations, how they fail in silence until they don't. "Honesty," Lauren said, tapping the table. "That's the point of the game." I nodded, then changed the subject like a man folding a map. The storm got louder. The room shifted the way a house shifts before you hear it, a subtle give in the joists. Tyler leaned back, laced his fingers behind his head, and looked around like he owned the lease. "Boring is a choice," he said. "Not to me, not to anyone," tossing it at the ceiling. Brooke gathered bottles, her bracelets chiming, the soundtrack of leaving. Lauren reached for my hand under the table and missed by an inch. Older couples know that inch. It grows miles overnight. I stood to collect plates, move, to bleed off anger like heat from an engine. Tyler's chair scraped loud. "Truth for me," he said. "Ask anything." I wanted to ask where my brother went, the kid who shared bunk beds and baseball cards. But the game had its grip. "What do you think about my life?" I asked. He smiled, held it, then let it curdle. "I think you settled," he said, "and she knows it." Outside, the storm organized itself, not a tantrum now, but a plan, bands of rain marching across Dallas like a timeline. I stepped onto the porch to breathe the air that smells like pennies before lightning. Men my age step outside for the same reason: to slow the heart, to count to 10, to find the version of ourselves who fixes things. The streetlights made halos in the puddles. Behind me, laughter tried too hard. My phone buzzed with a text from Lauren. "Come back in, we should talk." Another followed. "Don't make this bigger than it is. That's the thing about water. It finds every gap." I stared at the house I designed and paid for, the deck I sealed, the lights I installed with Tyler one spring weekend when hope still fit both our shoulders. The rain hit harder, faster. I went back inside, not because I was finished cooling down, but because I'd heard the hinge start to sing. Lauren set her glass down and tilted her head, the way she does in interviews when she's about to spring the real question. "Truth," she said softly. "What's the one risk you've wanted to take, but didn't, because it might upset the life you built?" It sounded gentle. It wasn't. She knew I plan projects a year out, that I budget vacations, that I keep spare keys in a labeled tin. The question wasn't about dreams, it was about nerve. Older folks know that kind of ask. It's a measuring stick disguised as curiosity. Tyler smirked like a kid eavesdropping on grown-ups. Brooke watched the ice sweat on her glass. I started to say, buy land by the lake, but heard the trap. Admit I play it safe, and the jury, my wife, my brother, bangs the gavel. I pick risks I can survive, I said. Lauren smiled like a teacher who got the answer she expected. She dealt another card. The storm underlined it. Tyler laughed, a little too loud for the room. Risks you can survive? That's adorable. He leaned back until the chair groaned. Come on, Jack. Minivan meals, early bedtimes, the same barber since '09. You don't live, you laminate. Older men know the sting. We make schedules not because we're timid, but because somebody has to. He kept going. Lauren could have married anyone in Dallas who builds hospitals and calls it romance. She chose predictable. Brooke stopped wiping the table. Lauren didn't correct him. It was the silence that did the damage. I looked at my brother, the kid I taught to throw a curve, and saw a stranger grading my life like a Yelp review. Say that again, I said, calm as a level on fresh concrete. Tyler tapped the rim of his glass. You heard me, he said, and smiled. The kind of smile that dares you to swing. The storm rattled the window like applause. I stood. Not fast, not theatrical, just enough to feel the floor tell me I was still anchored to something I trusted. Older guys know that move. You don't puff up, you measure distance, 2 steps. A chair between us, a candle, one family's history stacked like lumber. You're in my house, I said, voice low. Sleeping in my guest room, eating my groceries, using my alarm code. Tyler's grin held. You invited me. True. I'd opened the door the way big brothers do. So don't teach me about risk, I added. I write checks with my name on them. He sat forward. Maybe write one for your spine. Brooke cleared her throat, a gentle siren. Lauren said my name like a speed limit. In my head, I calculated exits, distances, angles, old habits from job sites and bad bars. I moved my hand away from the glass. 2 feet left between us. 2 feet is a long fall. Lauren slid between us like a mediator walking into a warehouse dispute. Enough, she said, placing one hand on my chest, the other on Tyler's forearm. The touch meant to cool the room did the opposite. I felt her palm, warm, steady. Tyler's breathing changed under her fingers, a tiny hitch, like a man catching a tossed key without looking. Older folks spot that body language, married or not, you know when touch crosses a line. We're all family, Lauren said, her eyes on me but her hand still on him, thumb unconsciously smoothing the seam of his shirt. Brooke set a stack of plates down a little harder than necessary. The candle hissed in a pool of wax. Let's take 5, Lauren added, voice professional, a meeting adjourned. She turned to collect glasses. Her hand slipped from Tyler's arm, slow, reluctant, like the last leaf off a branch. The storm hit the porch. It felt like someone knocking. I stepped onto the porch to answer a question no one asked. What kind of man do you want to be in the next 5 minutes? The rain was cold enough to make me honest. Streetlights smeared yellow on the wet street. My phone buzzed. Lauren, come back in, we should talk. Another buzz. Don't be dramatic. Older men get that text, meant to minimize, to tuck the moment back into a drawer. Through the dining room window, I saw shapes. Lauren collecting candles, Tyler refilling his glass, Brooke gathering her purse like a lifeline. I put my hand on the rail I'd sanded last spring and remembered how long it took to get it smooth. Building is slow, breaking is fast. My phone buzzed again. Lauren, let's just reset. Tomorrow we'll laugh about this. I wiped rain from my eyes with the back of my wrist and stared at my own front door like it belonged to someone else. You don't spot betrayal in headlines, you feel it in edits. Perfume that didn't live in our house last month. A workout bag by the door that never made it to the gym. New passwords, new client dinners, new jokes I wasn't in on. Older couples know the drift. Not a fight, a fade. The night made a ledger in my head. Lauren's careful language, Tyler's casual contempt, the way the storm seemed to echo the room. I remembered my dad's advice. When wood splits, don't chase the splinter, find the knot. The knot here wasn't hurt feelings, it was pattern. Calls on the porch, late returns, 2 travel mugs in the sink on a morning when I made only one. I felt ridiculous, like a teenager reading tea leaves. Then I thought of payroll, the mortgage, the responsibility to name things by their names. I couldn't do this alone. I needed someone without a stake in our kitchen. Frank Russo's office sits over a body shop that smells like brake dust and second chances. He's the kind of man older guys trust on sight. Ex-cop eyes, boots he's had resoled, coffee that tastes like blacktop. We met years ago on a charity build. He framed walls while I checked permits. He listened without interrupting as I laid out the evening, the game, the glance, the touch. He asked for times, not feelings, dates, not adjectives. "You want me to prove you're crazy or that you're right?" he said, mouth tired at the corners. "I want the truth," I answered. He nodded once. Truth cuts both ways. He slid a legal pad across the desk. "Write out the last month like a punch list. Travel, receipts, any change in routine." I wrote until my hand cramped. He tapped the pad. "Next question. If I find something ugly, do you want to see it?" I said yes, out loud. I told Frank everything men my age hate to say. That my brother was drifting again. That my wife had gone quiet in ways I couldn't fix with flowers or a weekend in Fredericksburg. That I keep order because it keeps me from becoming the worst parts of myself. He didn't judge. He sorted. He asked about insurance, about beneficiaries, about the firm. "Builders plan for storms," he said. "So do wolves." He showed me a small recorder, the size of a thumb drive. "If you choose to document, do it right. Public places, clear audio, no threats." I nodded. He asked for permission to run public records, to pull phone logs I could request, to check hotels along Lauren's routes. The words felt like sand in my mouth. Then he said the thing that made it easier. "Not knowing is a plan too, just not a good one." I signed the retainer. My hand was steady, my stomach wasn't. Frank laid out a theory that fit too well. "Affairs explain looks," he said, "but not behavior. Behavior says pressure." He drew 3 boxes: money, motive, method. "Tyler's broke," he guessed. "Debts talk louder than shame. If someone promised him a reset..." He let it hang. "Insurance?" I asked. He didn't flinch. "People do math they shouldn't. Add in forged signatures, a burner phone, a weekend alibi, and by Monday you're not a husband, you're a headline." Older viewers know that chill. We've read those stories over coffee, grateful they belong to other towns. "If I'm wrong," Frank said, "we waste a few days and you earn an apology. If I'm right, we save your life." He slid the recorder toward me and a card with a number to call any hour. Rule 1, don't confront. Rule 2, don't drink with them. Rule 3, record what they give you. I pocketed the device. The storm outside finally blinked. Decisions at midlife feel heavier because you know exactly what they cost. I drove home with the recorder in my pocket like a hot stone. The house looked the same. Porch light on, wreath straight, planters I still needed to winterize. Inside, Lauren had stacked dishes. Tyler scrolled his phone, feet up like rent paid itself. I asked if everyone was good. Smiles all around. Older folks know that smile. It belongs on Christmas cards and courtrooms. I took a long shower and counted my breathing, then laid out a plan on the back of an envelope. Keep routine, change nothing, notice everything. Tomorrow I'd request phone logs, check my insurance, look for paper moved an inch from where I left it. I'd meet Frank at lunch, not at the office. I'd say less, listen more. Before bed, I turned off the porch light and armed the system. Then I did one new thing. I turned on 2 cameras. The first clue wasn't dramatic. It was a phone bill. I've kept our bills since flip phones, old habit from running projects, so I noticed the new number right away. It wasn't local. It showed up at 11:42 p.m., 5:18 a.m., lunch hours when I was in meetings, and once during a Sunday service while Lauren sat beside me, singing harmony. Each call ran long, 40 minutes, 60, 90, like chapters. I tried the number from my shop line. It rang twice, then clicked to silence, the kind you hear when someone watches the caller ID and sets the phone down on a towel. Older folks know that move, not a hang-up, a hold your breath. I cross-checked our Wi-Fi logs. Lauren on video calls past midnight, Tyler awake at the same times. The pattern drew itself in pencil. Contact, confirm, conceal. I took a screenshot and sent it to Frank with a single line. "Does this look like coordination?" He replied in seconds. "Yes, keep going." So I did. Lauren mentioned a client summit in Portland like she mentions everything work-related. Clean, unremarkable, filed under, "You wouldn't enjoy it." Portland, Maine, not Oregon. She'd said it like you'd say a grocery list. Frank had me map hotel receipts against that new number in my calendar. 3 weekends matched. Her business trips, that number's longest calls, and my late nights prepping bids. Frank called a contact at a waterfront hotel. No gossip, just dates and room types. 2 queens requested converted to a king, his friend read, and then stopped reading, like a man stepping on something sharp. I stared at our kitchen island, the slab I oiled last spring, while my brain caught up to my eyes. Business doesn't need a king bed, not at a summit. Old men say it straight. You don't need evidence to smell smoke, but you need it to prove a fire. I wrote down times, confirmation numbers, credit card tails. The pile grew. So did the heat. Insurance is the tool you buy hoping you never use. I keep our policies in a red binder, tabs for life, home, auto, the business buy-sell. I pulled the life folder and found a change form I didn't remember signing. The beneficiary on a key policy had been switched, away from Lauren, not toward a charity, but to T. Miller. Tyler. The letters were neat, almost careful, like a man trying to pass a handwriting test. My name sat above it in a signature that looked familiar until I saw what my hand always does. I press harder on the downstroke of a K. This one didn't. I called the agent, a man who's known me since I wore a cheaper suit. "Came in 3 weeks ago," he said, cheerful until he wasn't. "Your brother brought it. Said you were slammed." Old guys know the sound a room makes when the air changes. I thanked him. Then I sat very still. Someone was planning for a payout. I've watched subcontractors forge initials on delivery slips to hide late runs, and I can spot bad pen pressure across a table. I took photos of 5 documents with my signature from the last month, 2 vendor checks, a permit application, a school donation, and that insurance form, and laid them side by side under a lamp. 4 had the slope of a man who signs while talking. 1 looked traced, like a student copying without confidence. Frank showed me a trick. Write your name 3 times with your eyes closed. Your muscle memory sings, fakes go flat. Mine sang. The form didn't. "That's fraud," Frank said, voice as flat as the ink. "And fraud this clumsy usually isn't the only fraud." I imagined Tyler at my desk, the drawer he knew, the pen he'd borrow, the practice sheets he'd shred. Lauren wouldn't need to forge it. She'd need to believe it. The difference matters in court and in marriage. Both are binding, until they aren't. The burner phone lived in plain sight, which is how you hide things from men who trust routines. Bottom drawer of Lauren's vanity, tucked beneath a hair straightener she rarely used. It was cheap, light, the kind of plastic you could crack with your thumb if you pushed. I powered it up in the garage with the door closed and the fan on. The call log was a braid, the strange number, Tyler's cell, a prepaid line with a Portland area code. Texts were short, practical, like construction notes. Arrive 8p, call from lobby, wait for clear. 1 thread made my hands go cold. Beneficiary change went through. Good. Old folks will understand. Sometimes you don't need a photo to see a picture. I photographed the screen anyway, then powered the phone down and put it back exactly as I'd found it, like a man resetting a tripwire he'd just stepped over. I washed my hands, though nothing on them was visible. Yet. The message was dated yesterday, tagged to that Portland number. Portland is perfect timing. No emojis, no warmth, just planning. Under it, 3 bullet points, literally dashes. Travel together. Confirm timeline. Alibi set. The word alibi doesn't visit healthy marriages. It visits police reports. I heard an old story my father used to tell about a man who trusted everyone until he trusted no one, and how the change didn't happen in a day. It happened in a sentence. Frank called while I stared at the screen. "You okay?" he asked. "Define okay," I answered. He told me to copy everything. photos, dates, serial numbers, and to place the burner back exactly. "We need them comfortable," he said. "We need them talking." I nodded to a phone he couldn't see. Then I looked at the calendar. Monday, my biggest presentation, the day my world was supposed to widen. Instead, it was circling, tightening, if I'm honest. Tight enough to count my breaths. I used to think plans were blueprints you hang on a wall. Now I know they can be text threads and check boxes, subtle nudges and careful silences. I stood in my office and saw the pieces placed like framing before sheetrock. Tyler's debts, Lauren's distance, late-night calls, hotel beds, forged signatures, a beneficiary move, a burner phone. The plan didn't feel like romance. It felt like relief. For them. Relief funded by me. Older viewers know the algebra. Pressure plus opportunity equals choices you don't talk about at Thanksgiving. The conclusion arrived without hurry. This wasn't a fling that got out of hand. It was a project. Projects have start dates, budgets, milestones, contingencies. They'd picked Portland because absence tastes like innocence in court. They'd picked Monday because the story writes itself. Stressed business owner, legal trouble, tragic end. I stared at the wall where our wedding photo used to hang and felt the nail hole looking back. Empty as a message, too. Sleep didn't come. Inventory did. Men my age keep lists when we can't keep anything else. I listed roof repairs, crews, invoices, then found myself listing ways a man goes quiet without raising suspicion. A missed exit, a note on a desk, a text that reads like surrender. I pictured my truck at the bottom of a ravine, the kind you don't see on a rainy night, and hated my own imagination for being helpful. The idea I wouldn't let bloom finally pushed through. They might want me dead. Not ruined, not divorced. Dead. The word sat in the room like a fifth chair. I went downstairs and stood barefoot on wood I'd installed, boards that creaked in precise places because wood is honest. I poured water, not whiskey. Older folks will recognize the prayer I said, the short one that doesn't bargain. When it ended, the house was still, the kind of still that listens. I listened back. Then I made a plan. Frank didn't waste my courage. He met me at a diner that smells like bacon forever and brought a file folder instead of sympathy. "You need to hear this," he said, tapping the folder. "The truth is usually worse than your guess and kinder than your fear." He laid out possibilities like a coach drawing plays on a napkin. Frame the business, stress the husband, schedule a trip, time the event, collect the money. He showed me how forged documents travel, faxed, scanned, notarized by people who never learned our names. He talked about storage units, about how secrets like to live where rent is cheap and cameras don't point. He said the word method quietly, like it had teeth. "If I'm wrong, you yell at me for a week," he added. "If I'm right, we move before Monday moves on you." Older guys appreciate straight talk. I left with a list, a recorder, and a single decision to make before dark. I drove to a park where fathers teach kids to throw and sat under a pavilion while the rain took turns with the wind. Decisions change shape when you name them, wait and hope, or dig and know. I thought about my crew, our payroll, my mother's Christmas questions, and the man in the mirror who still believes work and patience fix most things. Some things need wrenches, some need witnesses. I called Frank. "We dig," I said. "We document. We don't bluff." He told me to act normal, gather records, check the house cameras, and meet him at noon tomorrow with copies of everything. "And Jack," he added, "no drinking with them, no hero speeches." I promised. Then I went home and did something I never do. I locked my office drawer and put the key in my pocket. When Lauren asked how my day was, I said productive. It was true. Productivity sometimes looks like a shovel and a clock. They left before the rain burned off the driveway. Lauren packed like a conference veteran, black dress, flats, charger coils tamed with a hair tie. Tyler carried both bags like a man auditioning for Dependable. "Portland's only a couple hours," he said, jangling my keys like a punchline. I offered to drive. Lauren waved it off. "You've got that big Monday," she said, the way you pat a dog and close the gate. Older folks know that goodbye. Tight smile, quick kiss, eyes already somewhere else. The house exhaled when the door shut. I stood in the kitchen, listening to a refrigerator that suddenly sounded like it had something to hide. A text landed. Made good time. Hotel's cute. Don't wait up. I pictured two queen beds rolled together and a bellman who'd seen it all. I walked the perimeter, locks, lights, camera angles, and set a fresh legal pad on my desk. If they were starting, so was I. Frank had coffee waiting and a manila folder fat enough to ruin a morning. Photos, he said, sliding the first page over. Lauren and Tyler stepping into a brick office with a brass plaque. Kellerman and Howe, attorneys. Next, a receipt from a nearby steakhouse, the kind of dinner where the waiter grinds pepper like confetti. Listen, Frank added, pressing play on a tinny phone recording. A hostess confirmed a private room for Kellerman's party, name noted on the check. Then came the meeting notes Frank's contact had glimpsed on a tablet left face up. Partnership dissolution. Contingencies. Timing. Monday. Older viewers know that word, dissolution, doesn't visit happy homes. Frank laid down a retainer stub with Tyler's scrawl where clients leave their names. My stomach tightened the way it did once on a ladder that sank an inch. Lawyers don't sell romance. They sell exits. The folder shut with a soft slap. They're thinking ahead, Frank said. So do we. We pulled Tyler's credit in a strip mall office that smells like carpet cleaner and hard truths. Numbers don't blush. Payday lenders. Cash advances with fees stacked like parking tickets. 3 credit cards authorized at businesses that don't offer company cards. A line of inquiry from a car lot that specializes in second chances at first-rate interest. I thought about Christmases where Tyler bought gifts too big, vacations he booked then canceled, apologies that came with playlists and stakes. Older men recognized the pattern, charm first, math never. Frank tapped a column with his pen. This one's not a bank, he said. The balance had no interest listed, just a due date and the word settlement. How much? I asked. He slid a number toward me on his phone. I won't print it here. I felt it in my knees. Debts like that don't knock once. They keep knocking, and they don't care what they break to get paid. Frank showed me stills from a camera outside a bar that doesn't advertise. Tyler smoking with 2 men who dressed like weather, plain until it turned. One had a nose that healed wrong. The other wore a watch too heavy for his wrist. The timestamp matched a late call on Lauren's burner. Older viewers have heard this sermon. When banks stop answering, someone else does. Frank's contact pulled a short voicemail Tyler never deleted because panic makes people sloppy. Monday, or it gets loud. No threats shouted, no movie lines, just a date delivered like a calendar reminder. I thought of my brother as a kid sleeping through fireworks, our mom's hand on both our heads like a blessing. Then I pictured those men learning my address from a man who knew it by heart. Frank closed the laptop. Pressure explains speed, he said. Speed makes mistakes. We can use that. Monday had stopped being a day. It was a fuse. The math wrote itself on a diner napkin while bacon popped like static. Insurance payout plus business assets equals daylight for a drowning man, and a woman tired of holding him up. Frank didn't dramatize it. People have murdered for less, he said, folding the napkin until the numbers faced inward. Older adults don't need gore to understand motive. You've lived enough Tuesdays to know what desperation buys. The timeline fit too well. Frame my finances, stress my name, build a narrative about a man under pressure, then leave town holding receipts for innocence. I imagined my desk with a note that sounded like surrender, neighbors shaking heads on the sidewalk, the paper printing respected architect like it should soften the blow. I stared at the cheap metal napkin holder and saw my reflection, cut in 4 by chrome. Not me, I said, surprising myself with how steady it came out. Frank nodded once. Then we plan like they plan. The storage unit smelled like dust and detergent, the way secrets always do. Frank had a key the manager shouldn't have loaned him and a look I'd seen on site inspections before. Neutral until necessary. Inside were boxes labeled in my handwriting. Copied, not stolen. Even my loops had been practiced. Under a stack of contracts sat something that stopped my breath. Architectural drawings of my house with red pencil slashing sight lines, door swings, camera cones. Someone had measured my life. Notes read like a checklist. Entry, side gate weak. Master latch, stick at 2:30 a.m. Noise cover, HVAC cycle. Older viewers will know the chill of seeing yourself mapped. I traced a line to the bedroom and found an X by the safe, another by the back stairs, a third by the breaker panel. It wasn't art. It was a plan. I took photos without moving anything. Frank rested a hand on the box. "They've rehearsed," he said. So would we. There were photos too, me at the gym at 6:10, me leaving the office Thursdays at 7:40, me walking the dog the same route because dogs like ritual and so do tired men. A binder held my week in plastic sleeves, coffee runs, hardware store receipts, the exact minute I usually checked the mailbox, as if predictability were a lock they could pick. Older adults will understand this cutting truth. The habits you build to keep life steady can be used to tip it over. A page labeled Routes traced my truck's paths with a yellow highlighter, circled spots where trees meet bad lighting. Another page marked Neighbors, listed who travels, who works nights, who'd hear what. I found a sticky note with the phrase, "No camera on patio, noise from rain." I felt my face go hot. I'd noticed that too, and never fixed it. I fix things for a living. I set the binder down like a snake. The folder wasn't subtle. Incident plan sat in block caps like a warning label. Inside, a printed article on suicide indicators, a draft note on legal paper that sounded like me if you sanded off the parts that still believed in second chances, and a list of stressors already in motion: frozen accounts, postponed presentation, police visit. Older folks know the way stories get staged. You've watched the news long enough to spot a script. Then a page labeled Alibi with hotel confirmations, timestamps, even a reminder to post a photo from a lobster shack. Portland for innocence, Dallas for tragedy. The last page read, Monday night, with 3 bullet points I won't repeat. I didn't need drama, I needed oxygen. Frank squeezed my shoulder once, the way men do when there's nothing useful to say. "We document, we don't disturb," he said. I took a picture of every page until my hands stopped shaking. The plan was real. So was I. On the drive back, memory threw me a rope. 2 years ago, after a friend died sudden, I updated my will. I'd set the business to go to a foundation for scholarships and tools, kids who can't afford college but can build a life with their hands. Lauren kept the house in a trust. Tyler got nothing but my number if he ever needed a ride. Older viewers will get it. Love doesn't always mean money, especially when money changes the people you love. If that will still stood, their math broke. Insurance was a windfall, sure, but not the fortune Tyler needed, and not the motive a prosecutor loves. I said it out loud in the truck. They don't know. The word loosened a knot behind my ribs. If they didn't know, they'd have to adjust. Adjustments make noise. Noise leaves marks. And people who need signatures create situations where pens move. My jaw tightened. Mine wouldn't. Not for them. Frank heard me out, then finished the thought I didn't want to say. If your current will guts their payday, they need one of 2 things: you signing new papers, or you signing with a fist at your back. Older men know the difference between fear and caution. Fear freezes. Caution draws a map. So, they'll invite you where the optics are good, Frank continued. Lunch, friendly, public enough to look safe, private enough to push. I pictured a booth with a wall at my back and a door I couldn't reach without sliding past the person smiling at me. "We flip the script," he said. "You pick the spot. We wire you. We bring eyes. We record what they offer and what they threaten." He tapped the manila folder. "They've rehearsed an ending. Let's write a different one." Older viewers will recognize the relief. Having a plan beats having a prayer. I nodded. Monday wasn't a fuse anymore. It was a trap. My trap. I started with the kind of gear older dads buy their kids for speech class and never think about again. A collar mic that looks like a tie clip. A pen camera that actually writes. A key fob with a hidden lens. Frank showed me how to test levels. Count to 10, cough once, rub fabric to hear the scratch. I mounted a tiny camera inside my briefcase facing out. angled so the booth across from me would sit in the frame. A backup recorder lived under a strip of painter's tape beneath the table where my knees would be. I synced the timestamps like I sync crews, everyone on the same minute. It felt ridiculous and necessary, like wearing a seatbelt to back the truck down the driveway. I was sliding the briefcase shut when the garage door rattled, Tyler's voice, Lauren's laugh. I snapped the clasp, exhaled twice, and practiced my face in the microwave door. Cordial, not cornered. Game on. Frank and I walked the plan like a job site. Entrances, exits, blind spots. He'd sit in a plumber's van across the street with 2 cameras and a scanner that hears police radios burp. We agreed on signals. I scratch my left wrist if I need time, tap the table twice if they push papers, say, "We'll split a cannoli," if I feel unsafe. Simple beats fancy. Older men know that. He'd text date. Ward the moment we got a clean threat or admission. "Don't chase it," he said. "Let it come." He circled a time on a paper placemat. Noon. Lunch crowds are noisy enough to cover nerves, calm enough that witnesses remember faces. "Pick the booth with your back to the wall," he added. "You're not a hero, you're a camera." I repeated the rules back to him like a foreman repeats safety checks. He looked satisfied and tired. So was I. Planning steadies hands. Mine needed steadying. The call came at 10:17 a.m. "Lunch?" Lauren asked, bright as a realtor at an open house. "You deserve a treat after your big push." Tyler's voice chimed in somewhere nearby, too casual. "Rosario's at noon, big bro. My treat." Men my age know that phrase means your wallet still pays. I kept my tone even. "Sounds good." Lauren added, "Let's celebrate, reset, no stress talk." The word reset hit like cold water. I texted Frank, "Noon, Rosario's, both coming." He replied with a thumbs up and a location pin where the van would park. I printed 2 innocuous sheets to tuck in my folio, meeting notes that say workday, not wire. Before I left, I checked the mirror. Collar mic dark, key fob on belt, phone at 80%, nerves at 90. I kissed the dog, locked the back door, and told the house I'd be back for dinner. It didn't answer. Houses don't. They hold their breath. Rosario's smells like tomatoes and comfort. Vinyl booths, pictures of Sinatra, a chalkboard promising Meatball Monday. I asked for the corner booth with a view of the front door, the kitchen swing, and the alley exit. 3 lines of sight like lines on a plan. The server poured water, dropped menus, and called me sir in a way that made me feel both seen and old. I set the briefcase on the bench, tilted its mouth an inch, and checked the frame on my phone. Perfect. My place, their places, the aisle where a detective could walk in without bumping a chair. Older folks know this kind of preparation isn't paranoia. It's adulthood. I ordered coffee to give my hands something to do. At 11:59, the bell above the door jingled. Lauren entered, summer dress in winter colors, smile set to warm. Tyler followed in a shirt he'd borrowed from my closet years ago and never returned. Right on time. Lauren slid into the booth beside me, close enough for perfume and a wedding band to share the same air. "You look tired," she murmured, palm on my forearm, thumb moving like she was smoothing out fabric, like she had the night she stood between me and Tyler. "Big week," I said. Tyler sat across, elbows wide, grin soft. "We were worried about you," he offered, eyes damp the way a salesman's eyes go damp when the price lands. Older viewers will recognize the choreography. Affection to lower your guard, concern to move the conversation, a compliment to grease the hinge. Lauren talked about Maine, harbor views, a lobster roll, a hotel that felt like a movie. Tyler asked about my presentation, tisked at the delay, said, "You don't deserve that, man." The waitress took our order. Lauren squeezed my arm. Tyler raised his glass. The stage lights were on. Everyone hit their marks. Time to speak my lines. I didn't accuse. I invited. "Speaking of delays," I said, sliding my folio onto the table, "I've been cleaning up paperwork. Insurance, will, all that fun." Older adults know the tone. Casual, like you're asking a neighbor if they need anything from the hardware store. Tyler's eyes flicked to Lauren, then to my folio. Lauren's smile thinned. "That's smart," she said. "We should all get things aligned." She touched my wrist again. Have you updated beneficiaries? Power of attorney? She said power of attorney the way HR folks say offboarding, clinical, easy to file. Maybe, I said, and let the word dangle. I keep wondering if my old will still says what it should. Tyler leaned in. If you want help, I know a guy. Monday afternoon, quick signatures, done. He left the where unsaid. I heard it anyway. Why Monday? I asked. Lauren didn't blink. Because closures matter, she said. The coffee arrived. So did the silence. The quiet broke under Tyler's shoe. He started tapping, then stopped pretending. Here's the thing, Jack, he said, voice lower, letters sharper. You've made mistakes with the business. He smiled like a man laying down cards he thinks are aces. There's chatter, investigations. You could be in real trouble if you don't play this right. Older folks know that phrase, play this right, means do what we want. He reached across the table and pinched my sleeve, not hard, just enough to test skin. By the time this is over, you'll be lucky to stay out of prison, he whispered, and the whisper carried farther than he meant. Lauren hissed his name, too late. The waitress paused with a basket of garlic knots. A couple at the next booth went still. Tyler saw the attention and doubled down. Sign what you need to sign Monday, and this all goes quiet. He sat back, pleased with himself. He'd given me the line. I didn't raise my voice. I raised my phone. Let me clarify, I said, tapping the screen to play back the last 30 seconds through the little speaker that always sounds tinny until it doesn't. The restaurant heard Tyler's whisper exactly as the room had. By the time this is over, you'll be lucky to stay out of prison. Sign what you need to sign Monday, and this all goes quiet. Conversations paused mid-syllable. Silverware halted mid-air. Even the kitchen bell missed a beat. Older diners know that particular hush. It's the sound of a lie meeting a microphone. Tyler went pale in stripes. Anger, panic, calculation. Lauren's hand slid off my arm like a ring too big. I set the phone on the table and looked at the briefcase, then at the door, then right into Tyler's eyes. You're not the only one with a plan, I said. He opened his mouth. For once, he didn't find a sentence. The bell over the door jingled again, and this time it brought company. Detective Alicia Ward walked in with 2 uniforms and the posture of someone who has done this more than most people make breakfasts. Frank appeared at the back exit, calm as a man looking for the restroom, then stepped sideways to block it. Tyler Miller? Lauren Bennett? Ward asked, voice even. We have questions about fraud, conspiracy, and attempted murder. Older adults will appreciate the order of those words. Tyler went for indignation. This is harassment. He scooted. Frank didn't. Sit, Frank said, like to a dog he still loved. Lauren touched her hair and found nothing to fix. Ward read rights in a rhythm older than Sinatra on the wall. The waitress set down the garlic knots anyway. Life keeps serving. Phones came up in half the room because that's the century we live in. I watched the scene like a blueprint finally matching the build. Lauren's face folded, not into tears at first, but into math gone wrong. Jack, please, she said, and the please wasn't for me. It was for the story she thought would protect her. I can explain. Tyler tried on a dozen masks in 5 seconds. Charm, outrage, wounded, bored, until he landed on the only honest one. Scared. The cuffs clicked, soft metal against skin and pride. Ward's partner recited charges like measurements. Frank met my eyes across the room and gave the smallest nod, the kind you give a man who brought his crew home safe in bad weather. Older viewers know the feeling that follows a crisis, relief laced with the bill coming due. The room exhaled. Someone clapped once, not sure if they should. I wrapped my hand around the coffee cup to keep it from shaking. The trap had closed. The recording had teeth. But the mess was bigger than a lunch arrest. Consequences were next. So was rebuilding. Steam lifted from my coffee while the cuffs clicked, a quiet percussion under Sinatra and clinking forks. I kept my hands around the mug to steady the shake the way my father did after bad news. Lauren stared at me like a stranger asking directions. Tyler tried 3 smiles and found none that fit. Detective Ward nodded once, and Frank disappeared through the back, already a step ahead. I paid the bill, tipped heavy, and apologized to the waitress for the show nobody ordered. Older folks at two nearby tables gave me the look you give a neighbor whose roof just failed in a storm. You do not cheer, you help hold the ladder. Outside, the sky broke blue after the rain, and the air smelled like metal. Ward told me to expect a long afternoon. I drove behind the cruiser at a respectful distance, coffee riding shotgun, knowing this wasn't closure. This was demolition, and permits were pending. Still, at the station the investigation widened like a river after a dam gives. Fraud first, then forgery, then money moving through accounts that never should have known my name. Ward's team opened boxes from the storage unit while Frank recorded chain of custody like a man counting beams. They called the insurance company, the bank, the hotel, the attorney whose plaque matched our photos. Each call added weight. A forensic accountant pointed to entries that looked clean until you asked why they existed. Funds slid from vendor advances into ashtray companies with patriotic names. Older adults know that trick. You have seen charities run from post office boxes. A separate detective handled whispers about help from men who fix problems with fists. My phone kept buzzing with employees asking if we were safe, if Friday's paychecks would clear, if I needed them to show up. I told everyone the truth I owned. Cooperate, document, breathe. We were nowhere near done. The fallout didn't wait for verdicts. Morrison's investors froze our bid, accounts paused, projects paused, then people paused because payroll cannot run on apologies. Vendors called with past due voices. Clients asked for letters on letterhead explaining investigative holds. Older owners will recognize the cascade. One beam goes, and the roof remembers gravity. Ward cleared my name in public faster than I expected, a briefing that used the words exonerated and victim of a conspiracy. It helped. It did not fix invoices. I met my crew in the shop on a Wednesday that felt like a winter funeral. I told them what I knew, what I didn't, and what I could not promise. I offered references, introductions, my tools for weekend side work. They boxed their gloves and tape measures like men leaving a team they loved. When the lights clicked off, the space echoed. My company was gone. My name somehow stood upright. That mattered. It also hurt. Like hell. I made cooperation my new job. Mornings with detectives, afternoons with auditors, evenings with a notebook and a scanner that finally earned its keep. Frank taught me how to bundle evidence so a jury could take the trip without getting carsick. Timeline first, money trail second, voices last. Ward's team asked the same question 6 ways because that is how you build truth that holds. Older viewers will appreciate the rhythm. Show up on time, bring copies, speak plain, admit what you do not know. I signed releases, pulled phone logs, pulled emails, sat for recorded statements where every word felt like a stud you hope is straight. I called employees to testify and told them to tell the unvarnished thing, even if it made me look slow. Most people came. A few didn't. That happens. At night I walked past the empty drafting tables and promised I'd build something again. Promises are lighter than lumber. I kept carrying them home. I visited Lauren because the past deserved plain words. The county jail was fluorescent and tired, a place where time chews slow. She walked in wearing beige and a face I recognized from our early years. Careful hope mixed with performance. We sat at a metal table that wobbled. "I'm sorry," she began, and I waited for the rest. Older adults know apologies have parts. Naming, ownership, change. She named the plan. She owned her part. Change would be a judge's word, not hers. "It started with debt," she said. "Then it became about escape." She used a phrase I once admired, strategic options, and it sounded like poison now. I asked if anything had been real. She said the first years were, that we drifted when life became checklists. "I wanted spark," she said. "I chose fire." The room hummed. Somewhere a door clanged shut. I told her I believed her and that believing wasn't forgiving. She nodded. So did I then. Tyler looked smaller without his costumes. County orange is honest in a way designer denim never is. He tried a joke, then tried a shrug, then tried my old nickname for him. I didn't give him any of those back. Older brothers know that restraint costs more than shouting. He talked about debt like weather, something that happened to him, not from him. He described men who don't send reminders, just reminders with knuckles. I thought it would be clean, he said. You'd never see the gears. He wanted me to understand before he wanted me to forgive. I asked him when he decided my death was cheaper than his life. He flinched. When the date was set, he said. When Monday turned to a number on a calendar, I couldn't see another way. I told him there are always other ways. They cost more. They take longer. They hurt. He nodded, and for once Tyler didn't sell anything back. Sentencing day was quiet like snow. People speak softer in federal court because the walls have heard everything. Judge Morrison read the record with patience that felt like steel. The charges sounded like a catalog built to last. Fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder, laundering. Older adults read lists like these in newspapers over coffee and shake their heads. I watched them land on faces I knew. Lauren stood straighter than Tyler and took her years like measurements, 15 with 12 before parole. Tyler tried to apologize and lost his place. He got 22 with 18 before a key might turn. Restitution figures floated like helium we would never catch. The courtroom emptied in shuffles. Reporters asked for quotes. I said justice was served, because that is what you say when a story ends on paper. Frank clapped my shoulder. Ward said to call if any loose ends rattled. Outside, the sun felt thin. Closure is not warmth, it is weather. The headlines came like weather too. Tidy, brief, then gone. Local news called me a survivor, a word that felt both accurate and off, like wearing someone else's jacket to a funeral. Friends texted articles with heart emojis and advice about dating apps I will never download. Older folks in the grocery line touched my elbow and said they prayed for me. I believed them. The shop stayed closed. I boxed awards that used to matter and mailed final tax files to my accountant with a note that said thank you for the years. Frank took me for barbecue and said not to read the comments. Ward returned my briefcase, wiped and logged, and told me to get some rest before the next thing. The next thing always comes. A reporter asked what I learned. I said, locks keep honest people honest. He laughed, then stopped when he saw I wasn't kidding. Pain teaches. So does paperwork. Every single day. I did not go back to drafting houses. I started helping people fix the messes money makes. The first client was a widow who smelled like peppermint tea and worry. Her son had opened credit in her name and called it love. We mapped accounts, closed doors, called banks until a human answered. Older adults understand that grit, simple tasks done steadily until the tide changes. Word spread in slow circles, churches, veterans groups, small business breakfasts. I spoke about red flags and plain steps, freeze credit, read statements, trust your gut, verify before you sign. Frank sent me cases. Ward sent referrals when law turned into life. I charged enough to stay afloat and waived fees when the story said I should. The work felt like framing again, lines plumb, corners square. One evening I locked the office and looked at the river. The city lights held. So did I. Rebuilding is slower than revenge. It lasts longer. For me. I lost a wife, a brother, and the company sign that carried my name. What I kept matters more, my life, my word, and the habit of finishing what I start. I sorted the salvaged lumber of my days, trust worth keeping, tools worth sharpening, stories worth closing. Some nights I still hear the rain on Dallas windows, but the sound no longer scares me. It reminds me to check the frame. Blueprints change. At dawn I pour coffee, call clients who need steady hands, and draw simple lines that keep predators out and dignity in. I'm an architect. This time I'm building a life. Boundaries that hold, practices that pay, friendships that don't wobble in bad weather. The past keeps its receipts. I keep my footing. Maybe forgiveness will come in phases like a renovation, demo, dust, daylight. Maybe it won't. Either way, I'll keep laying joists straight and counting to 10. Your turn. In my boots, would you forgive or erase?